in the heart of a dense, oppressive jungle, on the distant planet of Klavik Prime, a crashed starship from a foreign intergalactic force lay hidden amongst the foliage. It still had its exterior lights on, which shone through the bushes and trees, highlighting some form of technological life was still functioning. The Klavik spy agency, known as Celestium Kravar, watched closely as warning alarms went off on their monitoring panels. They knew something was awry, but not sure what exactly. Then, red warning lights began to blare out inside their new and gleaming espionage laboratory, where they kept tabs on the entire planet of Klavik Prime and surrounding planets and systems. Now, the Klavik spy agency knew they had to investigate the crash for the good of the planet. Was this an invasion gone wrong, or was this part of a larger master plan? Either way, an investigation was warranted. The leader of Celestium Kravar, in a meeting of their commanders, decided on a team of specialists to conduct the infiltration of the downed vessel. The Klavik team, a ragtag group of medics, scientists, and battle-hardened program soldiers, were decided upon, and underwent a day of brutal training as they prepared for what might be awaiting them on the ship. They trained against holographic aliens, terrifying demons, and ghostly apparitions in a bid to be aware of all possible dangers. The next morning came, and the team was up and ready. They left their barracks and started their descent towards the coordinates of the vessel, fully armed, locked, and loaded. They approached the crash site cautiously, their senses alert to the eerie stillness that permeated the air. This was a dystopian-looking event, if they ever saw one. After about 1.5 hours of journeying, they saw the lights of the ship through the overgrowth. It seemed abandoned. They saw no movement, and there was seemingly no noise coming from the interior. So, they went ahead and decided to make their approach. The team forced open a side hatch with a phased halogen, and abruptly, purple smoke sifted out of the opening. The team members were wearing gas masks, so were not concerned, but it begged the question by their leader, Commander Javok.
What the hell could possibly have happened in there?
The ragtag group moved into the ship, initially arriving into some sort of atrium. It had bright lights, with pods consisting of an unknown substance, as well as an ongoing annoying noise that wouldn't stop. As they ventured deeper into the wreckage, the crew's footsteps echoed eerily against the twisted metal floor panels, the sound reverberating through the silent corridors like a portent of fear. With each step, the oppressive atmosphere grew heavier, pressing down on them like a suffocating blanket. Inside the wreckage, they found the central command console still operational, its flickering screen casting a pale, ghostly light upon their faces. With trembling hands, they activated the playback of the last crew recording, and the horrifying events of the crash unfolded before their eyes. The recorded footage showed the former crew members of the starship, once comrades, bound by duty and camaraderie with a military structure, seemingly descending into madness and savagery as an insidious parasite took hold. But from where? No one knew. Fractured snippets of conversation filled the air, punctuated by the guttural sounds of violence and despair. As they watched in horror, the infiltration team realized the true extent of the nightmare they had stumbled upon. The crew had turned on each other with feral ferocity, their once rational minds consumed by primal urges and bloodlust. It was a scene of madness and chaos, a descent into the darkest depths of personal psyche. How could this have happened? What level of technological or biological weaponry were the team working with here? It was a question each member was pondering. But even as they recoiled from the horrifying spectacle before them, the team knew that their ordeal was far from over. For lurking somewhere within the wreckage, hidden from sight, were the remnants of the infected crew, twisted and deformed by the parasitic infection. Their search led them to the brig, which was on the 5th level of the ship. The ship's prison was dark and eerie, with cells lining the corridors, but the force field doors were no longer operational. The cells were filled with the damaged and grotesque remains of alien bodies, their twisted forms contorted in agony. They looked nothing like the citizens of Klavik Prime. They were truly alien, like something out of a sci-fi movie, but a really bloody twisted one. This type of stuff doesn't happen to the Klavik people. Crime was mostly eradicated, mostly due to the intense spying program the planet created. And then, in a chilling display of horror, the dead began to stir. Bones cracked and flesh peeled away as grotesque forms rose from their makeshift graves, their eyes gleaming with a ravenous hunger.
"Oh shit," Lieutenant Vagos said. "We gotta move! Get to safer ground, where we can contain this terrifying situation."
The infiltrators' screams were drowned out by the sounds of tearing flesh and snapping ligaments as the creatures lunged forward, their twisted forms moving with unnatural speed and agility. In a desperate bid for survival, the remaining members of the crew fought back with all the strength that they could muster. But the creatures were relentless, their savage onslaught overwhelming the beleaguered defenders at every turn. As the chaos unfolded, the group realized the true horror of their situation. As they were backing up, gunning down each alien undead creature, husks, if you will, they came to a stark conclusion. They were not just facing a simple infection or a mindless horde of monsters. They were witnessing the collision of two alien cultures, each driven by its own primal instincts and desires. But amidst the carnage and despair, a glimmer of hope emerged. For somewhere within the twisted corridors of the starship, there lay the key to stopping the spread of the parasitic infection. It was a faint hope, a flickering beacon of light in the darkness, but it was all they had. With grim determination, the team set out to find the source of the infection, knowing that their lives and the fate of Klavik Prime itself hung in the balance. And as they braced themselves for a future confrontation, they knew that the true horror had only just begun. For somewhere out there, in the depths of the jungle, lurked a terror beyond imagining, waiting to unleash its wrath upon an unsuspecting world. And as the echoes of screams faded into the night, the infiltration team knew that their struggle was far from over. The nightmare had only just begun. As the infiltration team delved deeper into the twisted corridors of the crashed starship, the true horror of the parasitic infection began to reveal itself in all its grotesque detail. With each step, they encountered more evidence of the alien menace that had taken hold. From the mutilated remains of the former crew to the insidious tendrils of the parasite itself, snaking its way through the ship like a network of pulsating veins. But as they pressed on, their grim determination unwavering, they knew that the true danger lay not within the confines of the wreckage, but beyond its twisted walls, in the heart of the jungle itself. Outside, amidst the towering trees and dense undergrowth, the parasitic infection had already begun to spread, its tendrils reaching out to ensnare the unsuspecting inhabitants of Klavik Prime. At first, it was subtle, a whispered promise of power and dominance, a seductive call to embrace the primal instincts that lurked within every living being. But as the infection took hold, its true nature was revealed in all its horrifying glory. The infected began to exhibit symptoms of the parasite's influence, their once rational minds twisted and distorted by the alien presence within them. At first, it was small things, a subtle shift in personality, a glint of madness in their eyes. But as the infection spread, so too did its effects, manifesting in increasingly grotesque and fear-inducing ways. Some became violent and unpredictable, their once docile natures giving way to a savage ferocity that was extremely scary to behold. Others succumbed to madness, their minds shattered by the overwhelming presence of the parasite, killing others irrespective if they were friend or foe. And then there were those who became something else entirely, monstrous hybrids of Klavik and Beast, their bodies twisted and deformed by the alien virus that now held them captive. These abominations roamed the jungle like savage predators, their hunger for flesh and blood insatiable. As the infection spread like wildfire across the planet, the team realized the true extent of the horror they faced. They were not just fighting to contain a single outbreak, they were battling against an entire world, turning itself into a dystopian death, a nightmare realm where the line between friend and foe had been irrevocably blurred. But amidst the chaos and despair, the soldiers and scientists of the infiltration team refused to surrender to fear. With every ounce of strength and determination they possessed, they fought back against the encroaching darkness, knowing that the fate of Klavik Prime and perhaps the entire galaxy hung in the balance. As the team pressed deeper into the heart of the jungle, the air grew thick with the stench of decay, and the sounds of distant screams echoed through the dense foliage. They moved cautiously, their weapons at the ready, knowing that at any moment they could be set upon by the infected horrors that lurked in the shadows. Their weapons of choice were disruptor rifles and a laser scope zooming out in front of them. Each member was wearing night vision goggles, so they could see any slight movement around them. Suddenly, without warning, they stumbled upon a clearing in the jungle, a makeshift camp littered with the torn and mangled bodies of the infected. The ground was slick with blood, and the air was filled with the haunting moans of the dying. As they cautiously surveyed the scene, a figure emerged from the darkness, a lone survivor, his eyes wide with terror and his body covered in gruesome wounds. He stumbled towards them, pleading for help, but before they could react, he collapsed to the ground, his body convulsing violently as the parasite took hold. With grim determination, the team fought off the approaching horde, but in the chaos, one of their own, Sergeant Wren, was overwhelmed by the infected. As his comrades watched in horror, he was dragged into the darkness, his screams echoing through the night as he was torn apart by the ravenous creatures. Heartbroken, but undeterred, the remaining members of the team pressed on, their determination hardened by the loss of their friend and comrade. They knew that they were the last line of defense against the spreading infection, and they would not rest until they had put an end to the nightmare that had engulfed Klavik Prime. But it was looking more desperate as every waking minute passed. They thought to themselves, how would they stop it? Should they head back to the ship or press on? And what would they find further into the Klavik Prime jungle? As they ventured further still into the abyss, known as the Defcon jungle, they encountered horrors beyond imagining. Grotesque mutations of nature, twisted and deformed by the insidious malevolence of the parasite. They fought tooth and nail against the relentless onslaught, their weapons flashing in the darkness as they battled for their lives. The parasite was growing, being able to affect everything from Klavik citizens to trees and leaves and even dirt. It was turning everything in its path into spawns of evil, pure, unadulterated vileness. And then, just when they thought they could go no further, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber deep within the heart of the jungle. It was situated between 2 trees and a bush behind the undergrowth. It was a chamber filled with ancient symbols and strange artifacts. They initially didn't mean anything. Were they like hieroglyphics? Or was it from a culture they hadn't come across yet? A hidden indigenous culture maybe, that had remained hidden? Or was it something else? Whatever these symbols meant, the team knew they had to find out, as it could be a way to turn the tide of this war. As they searched the chamber for clues, they uncovered a horrifying truth. The parasite was not a natural phenomenon, but a weapon created by an ancient, centuries-old civilization long thought extinct. And now, it had been unleashed upon Klavik Prime with devastating consequences. But why? What did this long-lived species have against the Klavik people? The team did not know about this alien species, but the glyphs and artifacts in the chamber didn't lie. It was clear this was part of a bigger plan, and one that the infiltration team needed to nullify if they could. But even as they grappled with this revelation, they knew that they could not give up the fight. They had to learn how they could firstly stop the infection, but to do that, they needed to learn as much as they could about this old-as-hell alien species and understand why they infected Klavik Prime. What was the reason? With the fate of the planet hanging in the balance, they vowed to do whatever it took to stop the spread of the infection and save their world from destruction. Clearly, it was science that would stop this travesty. Sheer military muscle was not going to cut it. So the soldiers in the team took a back step and allowed the scientists to lead the mission. Firstly, to explore more of the chamber. So with that, with the terrifying and, quite frankly, scary as shit events happening on the planet around them, they looked for clues and ways to fight back. What would the hidden Chamber of Secrets offer as a way to fight back and destroy the parasitic infection from hurting anyone else? Well, only time would tell, but to find out the future of Klavik Prime, you'll need to wait for part 2, coming soon. Thanks everyone for watching yet another sci-fi horror story. For this one, I went back to some more traditional sci-fi horror, so I hope you liked the little switchback that I decided to do. If you really like the channel, and frankly, if you like this video, give it a like. Also, hit subscribe if you really do want to help us out. And if you want to hear about all upcoming content, hit the bell. Again, if you want to send any stories through to me so that I can actually read them out for you, please feel free to send them to the email, which is in the description of this video and every video. I haven't had many, so it kind of is making me think you don't really want to do it. But if you do, and you feel you would like it narrated by me, then please feel free to send them through. If you want to chat, feel free to send any messages you want in the comments, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you very soon. Cheers.